Governor Polis is weighing in on the potential special session on education that Republicans asked for. He took questions about it during the afternoon update he gave today on COVID-19.
But there needs to be a path towards getting something through, not just some idea that legislators have. So the Senate Democrats have said they're against that idea of cutting funding to our public schools. But I encourage everybody to talk, because if there is something constructive that can be done, where there's a majority in the legislature around something that can help our public schools in the time of need, maybe we can find a path to do that.
This afternoon, Governor Polis also talked about COVID-19 testing in our state. He says the state wants to be able to get results back to people within 1 to 3 days. There are 50 community free testing sites across Colorado. The governor also sent a letter to the state's congressional delegation, joining other governors asking for an additional $500 billion in direct, flexible relief to states.